parts gassers once again being talked about. We're over here next to the green wall of 6.2, 6.5 and multi-fuel engines and parts gasser, the multi-fuel. Got a whole bunch of square body stuff and trailers and trailers and trailers. Most of my MV collection. Missing two 1009s and a 715 and a whole bunch of parts other places. All right. So when the M35 came out, contract was let, I believe, in 1948. They didn't start production. It's amazing how much paracord looks like a snake if you walk up on it. Let's just put that over there to scare me next time I come out. All right. M35 trucks. They were, I always thought, everything they learned in World War II and made into one truck. Turns out these were a stopgap. David Doyle, who writes books about military vehicles, is also on Steel Soldiers every now and then. He wrote a very interesting post on a thread years ago about deuce and a halves. About, well, when I talk about gasser and multi-fuel cab differences and fender differences and that kind of stuff, I'll mention that post. He wrote an article for Military Vehicle Magazine in the last couple months about how this was a stopgap. So was the GMC M135 and M211, the automatic transmission deuce and a half made by GM. At the same time, Rio was making these trucks. And there was going to be another series after that to replace this, the 211, 135, and all the CCKWs from World War II left over. That never happened. The missile race and the Air Force and missiles and whatnot got in the way. Money never was made available to make a vehicle off all the lessons learned in World War II. This is just some of them. One thing they figured out was the least number of things the driver has to worry about and do, the better. Because if the driver can screw it up, they will. So one of those was engaging the front axle. I don't know the numbers, but I imagine there were a lot of vehicles stuck when the back tires started spinning and the driver didn't know how to engage the front axle. All over the world, critical situations or ho-hum situations, I don't know. But I imagine a lot of those that happened. Or the front axle's engaged on loose soil, sand, dirt, whatever. Then they get on pavement and they don't disengage it and it breaks a bunch of internal parts in the transfer case, front axle, and steering system, and the truck is still out. Stuck or broken, truck can't be used. So they designed something called an overrunning clutch transfer case for these trucks. It's called a Sprag. And what it is there's gears in the transfer case. They're a little bit different ratio. Driving along, without touching anything, there's nothing to touch. The back tires are pushing down, the two rear axles are pushing down the road. If the two rear axles start turning faster than the drive shaft for the front axle, then the front axle is engaged and it starts pulling. That makes sense? Overrunning clutch. The rears just drive and drive and drive. As long as they're going slower than the front drive shaft is spinning, the front drive shaft gets no power. But as soon as they speed up and are going faster than the gears for this one's engaged. That gives you 8-wheel drive, 10-wheel drive, or 4-wheel drive, 6-wheel drive, whatever the truck is set up. And of course, you notice the front axle in the back is the hubs are flipped for single wheel. The rear axle, the hubs are in for dual wheel. That's the way I got the truck. I didn't bother changing it. And yes, this is a drop side bed from the 70s. It's not the bed that came with this truck. It's the bed that came on my other gasser. And when I found a proper fixed side bed, I put this one here and it became the parts gasser. All right. Part of that thing with the Sprag is it has to know which way the vehicle is going to know if it's needed or not. I know that's for mechanical gears to know if they're needed or not, but best way I can think of to describe it. So there is a rod on the top of the transmission that when you put it in first, it tells the transfer case we're going this way. When you put in reverse, it tells the transfer case we're going this way. Hey, Piper. And you have to use first gear or reverse to start off in those directions. Now, if you're already going along in fifth gear and you come to a stop sign and you're just sitting there, you can put it in second if you're empty and or low range or third low range, whatever you get going. That's no problem. But you cannot, if you're on an incline and you let go of the brake and the truck starts rolling backwards and you're in a forward gear, it thinks it should be doing, it's going to something called wind up, which is where all the internal axle shafts, differential, the big Rockwell 671 ratio, drive shaft, transfer case, all those things get in a bind. And you might not be able to shift the transmission or the transfer case. It could bind the whole thing up. It's called wind up. So these trucks were problematic, and the automatic, let's make things better thing caused people to not put it in first gear to move forward or reverse to move it backwards. And Memphis equipment. If you're in this world of the military vehicles, you've probably seen ads or something, heard about somebody write about Memphis equipment. They are in Memphis, obviously, Tennessee, and they had a program after the war, all through the 50s and 60s, and still to this day, of rebuilding military trucks and selling them. Their prices, they represent a ready-to-go vehicle. They're high, but compared to a brand new commercial vehicle, they're a pretty good deal. And these vehicles, if taken care of right, will last a very long time and do the job for you. Memphis Equipment came up with their own fix to the overrunning Sprag transfer case. They call it the REB kit, R-E-B. I'm not sure what that stands for. I've never been able to find that out. But some of the deuce and a halves have the REB kit, which has gears under the passenger seat. If you have the air switch under your dash, under the speedometer tachometer assembly, that is the military's fix, which was to get rid of the Sprag overrunning clutch and go with an air shift, as in the driver had to engage the front axle, and then the shaft on the top of the transmission telling the transfer case forward or backwards was useless. They just took the inner connecting piece out, and that shaft's still on all transmissions. That's why if you have a shaft on your transmission and you have the air shift transfer case, it's not hooked to anything. People ask about, what's this go to? You got the air shift transfer case. Don't worry about it. But in my situation, why I'm talking about this is I want to move this truck back, well, to the front tires against this old wheel here. It's about 6-7 feet. I towed it here with a tow bar going forward. But because the engine didn't run and the axles barely turned, I pulled you to move one of these trucks. If you're going to flat tow one of these trucks or move it anywhere, the Sprag overrunning transfer case, you have to pull the hub off, the hub plate, to disengage the front axle. That's what this is about. Because I'm going to use the winch to move the truck. It's going to be a different video because I've already talked too much on this. So I have, for parades and whatnot, 60, 70 miles away, I have used my multi-fuel to flat tow my gasser to a parade. So I just carried an impact with me, used the air hose on the truck, and zoom, 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 took all 8 of these 3/4 inch wrench bolts off, and I'll show you. So I know this is an impact gun, but it's a 3/8 drive. This is a non-impact socket. I'm aware of that, but I know these things are not very tight. They're just 8 of them. But pull these things off. I'm using the gun for speed. There's really no point sitting here with a turning a wrench the whole time. I guess I buttoned it up pretty good so it wouldn't get moisture in there and no rust. That was good. That one wasn't happy. Actually, I'll bet that one was trying to move. Oh, it doesn't want to come out now. Well, there it goes. You can hear the axle shafts moving. Come on. There it is. So that's the axle stub sticking out. And there's still gear oil in there. So now once I do the other side, I really could just do that one alone. I like doing both sides. Now it is ready to move without me moving the transmission. So overrunning clutch transfer case, if you move the truck anywhere not under its own power, you have to pull the front hubs and, or at least unbolt them so that they will not cause the whole thing to wind up. Unless you have somebody sitting in the cab with the transmission selector in reverse or forward, depending on which way you're going, pushing the clutch in. This cab is full of parts and pieces. You can't get in there. I'm working by myself today. So overrunning clutch. Hopefully that helps some people out with that whole process.